Well, hey folks, just when I was getting ready to sit down and play with this thing, I had this fur ball here decide to come up here and pester, and I guess he's you know, done everything he's gonna do, because now he's gonna get down, so there he goes. Anyway, so now I can reclaim my surface. So I've got this thing here, and I have figured out how to power it on, I think. So I'm going to try to power it on, and before long he's going to make so much noise over there and I'm going to have to boot him out. So I figured out how to power this thing up, and I'm going to try it. Basically, I just looked at the power supply and determined what voltage range approximately I need to give this thing, which is there's a couple of buck boost regulators in there, and there's a single adjustable you know, linear regulator, and looking at the resistor configurations of them, it's like you know, one of them's for 5 volts, one of them's for, you know, 3.3 volts, things like that. So that said, I should be able to give this thing 6 or 7 volts and it should power up. So I'm going to give that a go, and hopefully we don't let out any blue smoke. So what I've just done here is I've got my paper clips, which these are probably interesting to some, maybe interesting to some people. I've just got paper clips that I've put heat shrink tubing over them, and I've got lots of them, and they fit perfectly in pins like this, and, you know, for measuring and for powering them up and things like that. So now I gotta go let the blasted cat out of the room because he's sitting over there waiting for it. There you go. See ya. So, anyways, I've got my positive and negative DC connected, and I'm gonna plug it in and prop this thing up, and I don't know, maybe I should turn that on. I might be able to see something, and you know, make sure we've got that turned all the way up. And what I'm going to do if I get it powered up is I'll probe around on that jack on the side here, this multi-pin connector, and see if we've got any interesting signals on here. So, you know, I know that there's six wires going here, and 2 of them are power. The other 4 are signals. 2 of them look like they're an analog signal of some kind. The other 2 appear to be data, probably serial data. I would be willing to bet that that's what that is. So, anyways, I'm going to I'm just going to wing it. And I'm going to set my power supply for 6.5 volts, and I'm going to plug it in, and I'm going to see what happens. I'm fairly confident that it'll work, because I've spent probably an hour and a half reverse engineering that power supply. So, hey, it looks like it came on. I got a blinky LED over here, standby, and I got a system fault indicator down here. So, progress. And it didn't blow up. So, you know, hey, that works. Lamp test. It lights up all the LEDs. Don't know how visible that is on the video, but see if we can turn it off. Well, that didn't do anything, but you know what? That probably doesn't turn off the panel. That just turns off the thing that it's connected to. So it probably sends a power off command down the line. Maybe we'll see that when I go probing around to see what serial data is being transmitted off of here. So, it's in standby, so I wonder if I change that. Now if I change it to low power, the standby stops blinking, which would make sense. Of course, system fault, it's not connected to anything on the other end, so I don't expect to see anything there, you know, as far as any of this thing actually working. So anyway, some Some other video, people commented on the other video about this, that these zero eyes controls here is probably for a two-man dump of the encryption system, which would make sense, and it never really dawned on me until somebody said that. You know, if this went to part of a communication set, you don't want to just be able to easily get rid of the encryption keys. So you need to, you know, do this. To deliberately do that, you need to actually, you know, physically, two people or two hands to dump that out. So I'm curious, does the dimmer work? Yeah, it does. So you can turn the dimmer all the way down and essentially put the lights out. Except when you hit lamp test, which would make sense. So, anyways, being as this clearly must be part of the communications gear, it makes sense with this Ethernet port on it because you would use this for programming. There's some stuff on it, you know, in the other video about that. And, you know, honestly, I've heard of this system. I've never dealt with the system at all. I really don't know a whole lot anything about it. So this is my first foray into this. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to probe around and we're going to see what we got going on here. So probably won't be able to get that to work, so I'm probably just going to have to clip my negative lead there and just give it a probe around and see what we got. So all I'm going to do is we're going to take a ride, and I'm just going to point the camera at the scope screen because that's going to be more interesting than me sticking a probe into something, and you know I can't really do all of it at once. So ride, there we go. So see if we can't zoom into that, you know, make that get that as evenly as possible. So there's the screen, and gonna go for the first analog pin, which I suspect is like an analog signal of some kind, and that's me touching the probe, of course, and there doesn't appear to be anything very interesting there. So once again, the other one, there doesn't appear to be anything interesting there either. So the next one is going to be one of the digital ones, which I suspect is a serial comms. So, and there's something there. So let's stop that, and yeah, I bet that's RS422. That looks like one side of it actually. So let me just move this over here, do that again so we can get the whole packet. Yeah, so that's the whole packet there. And that looks like it's only one side of it. So I think what I'm going to have to do here is I'm going to have to get another probe so that we can see the other side of it. That's a differential, looks like a differential signal for those that don't know what I'm getting at. That looks like the A side or the positive side of it. Or is it the B side? I can't recall. It's been a while since I mucked around with RS422. So I'm going to assume it's the other pin, just because I've got no other pins left. Stick this other probe on here, turn it on. Is it on? Yeah, it's on. There we go. And do that again. Of course, what did I do wrong here? If I screwed the pooch. Let's see. There we go. So there's our whole differential signal. And the blue is the negative going, and the yellow is the positive going side of it. So if I move them, you can see what's going on there. So there's both of them. So, you know, it's probably, I would guess it looks like RS422. I don't have anything on this bench to decode it. Not that it's probably anything really very interesting to see anyway. Who knows what protocol this is using. This is probably about as far as it's really going to go, to be honest, because there's really not a whole lot to see here. Let's just make that a little bit smaller. But yeah, there's not a whole lot really to see here. There's really no way that I'm going to be able to replicate or feed this the data packets that it wants to see from whatever it's controlling to get this panel to really do much. So I don't know. That may be interesting. That may not be interesting. It looks like it's probably about a volt and a half, 1.6 volts. That's probably about right for RS 422 for a differential serial. So anyways, that's pretty much it. So I've got it to power up and I've got it to squawk some data out of it, but you know, there really isn't a whole lot else to look at. So I'm just gonna disconnect all of this stuff right quick and kill this power supply and go for a ride again back to our weird and wonderful box here. And so here's our weird and wonderful box. So the only thing I can think to do with this, if it's, you know, I don't know, I'm sort of debating it now in my mind, is to pull out this board and get another look at that microcontroller and see about, I don't have any Freescale programming stuff. I don't have any interfaces, any IDEs, anything like that. You know, they want an arm and a leg for that stuff. So here's our Freescale micro. Might try to play around with this next at the Ethernet side of things, because I'm not going to get a whole lot from the RS422 side. I'm just not. So the other method to get into this box is going to be from the Ethernet. So I'm going to plug this into. I'm going to get a little firewall / router here. I've got the perfect one to do it too, because it'll support all the various things I need to capture packets and things like that, so I can see what this is doing. And I definitely don't want to plug it into the into the home network, and in case this thing actually tries to go out onto the internet and ping anything. I highly doubt that. I suspect that this is really just a point-to-point kind of thing, like it's got a fixed IP address, and you plug a laptop into here with a crossover cable, and then you program it, and then you disconnect and you screw the cat back on, and you're away you go. And I suspect that that's how this works, because this is probably just quite simply Ethernet to serial, and I don't know why they would have done it that way. These exports, I thought you could build like a whole little web interface for these things. I have to look into it a little bit more. As I recall, you could. So there's probably more to see here than one would think. So that might be interesting for a third video. So I'll put this to the side and do some do another thing that somebody asked me. They've been asking me for a while if I could do it, which is the throw some of those QSC 2999 transistors into a radio, which I've got a bunch of them here, and see if those make any receiver improvements, which I'm just gonna call BS on it right now, but I'll do it and I'll check it and I'll see, and we'll see what happens with that. So that'll probably be the next thing I do today, because I think today is going to be a I'm not going to do a whole hell of a lot but play around with toys day. So anyways, guys, that wasn't very interesting, I know, but unfortunately there really isn't a whole lot to be had. in this without the other half of it anyway, because you can't. Won't be able to see what's going back and forth and things like that. If I had both ends, which I doubt I'll ever get, then it would probably be more. There would be more information, but I really don't. So, anyways, for the guys who want the numbers, I hope that can be read. I'm pretty sure that's legible. I hope. If not, when I take a gander at this, I'll actually write them in the comments down there. So that's really the only thing that's on here. So anyways, guys, catch you next time.